Hi there, Jake here, ready for another episode of Database Rangers Power Reviews, where I am going to be taking a look at my classic episodes of Database Rangers Power Reviews from all the way back in 2012. Uh, a simpler time, I think, for most. And I see that we already have people coming in the chat. Good evening, Jenny. Good to see you. It, I know, has been a roller coaster of a week for many of us. Um, so I figured that's now's as good a time as any to address it. Um, Obviously, those of you who follow this channel know that I did the big live stream to raise funds for voter rights in Georgia, and this week was also the big runoff election in Georgia. So we were all tremendously pleased to see that all that hard work did end up paying off, specifically for John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. That was amazing, and it's because the people of Georgia were able to voice their choice uh, as a direct result of the efforts of all of you out there contributing and everyone else all about working together to overcome the challenges of voter suppression. So you should all feel very proud of yourselves for the contributions that you made during the live stream, and anything that you did to spread the word or spread awareness. I can't thank you all enough. It was a remarkable experience for especially for me and Second Batgirl and Orange Ranger, doing that big Power Rangers marathon live stream across the course of 2 weekends, going through Zeo Turbo and all the way to the end of In Space. Welcome, Ranger Vision. Good to see you. Um, so that was a big highlight for this week, and then obviously it was followed up uh, immediately by the uh, very unfortunate chaos that we all are aware of took place in DC. I'm not going to linger on it. I do want this to be focused on the commentary, but it was just too major not to address, and I want you all to keep in mind that it's actions like those are the actions of desperate people. Um, and right now, that does mean that desperate actions can be dangerous, but desperate actions also do come when people are running out of outlets and out of options. And right now, um, unfortunately, very dangerous people are fortunately running out of outlets. So hopefully, this is a sign um, of the end of some dark times uh, arriving soon, and not a sign of further dark times in the future. We've seen over these last few months how we can work together to overcome challenges, and I truly believe that we can work together to overcome the challenges that still remain. There will always be battles to fight. There's always going to be new monsters to blow up, and I think that now is as good a time as any to reinforce our three non-controversial statements. Number one, say it with me, chat. Black Lives Matter. Number two, say it with me, chat. Fascism is bad. And number three, say it with me, chat. Superheroes are fun. And here we are, ready to celebrate a few of them. So I'd say that now is as good time as any to dive on in to episode 8 of Database Rangers Power Reviews, where I take a look at the 18th episode of Power Rangers Samurai, The Ultimate Duel. And here we go. Play. That's that beautiful sound. Oh, right. There's an audio
This
issue.
was the first of those episodes, The Team Unites. Origins, Part 1 and 2.
That was a
Party Monster.
that was a weird little audio issue.
Boxed in. Broken Dreams. What is the next episode?
It's the season finale.
And now,
Yeah, that was the
Database
first time that
Rangers
I really
Overview.
had it tied into doing the black and white clips.
Greetings.
I still hadn't quite gotten the hang of everything yet, but that was the start of it.
Sure, you can all ascertain I am not Database Ranger.
And this is
Some of the more unexpected side effects of his most recent medication.
and this was such a
Obviously, this does present
okay.
problems.
So that Mr. Hartford not a robot thing. One kind of funny thing about that little moment, as you may have noticed, it was a little muffled.
Here we are.
And MJ, I'm going to apologize that I'm about to call you out a little bit. This was, I know, 8 years ago. But that was the first time I'd ever asked them to hold the camera for me. And their finger was over the microphone of the camera. So that's why I'm so muffled there. But yes, obviously both of those little bits of ramblings were deliberate foreshadowing of the upcoming temporal distortions and obviously Database's secret robotic status. So it was always fun to sneak in those bits of foreshadowing wherever I could. And this was also just very fun because I was sick this week. That week, I was just genuinely sick. And I wanted to stick to that weekly basis, and I'm like, I don't have the voice for it. I had lost my voice. So I had to switch it over to Dr. K. The Dr. K character had already been a big hit, and it seemed like a really good way to bring her into the forefront. And it really became more of a partnership in the show between the two characters, starting from this point. So I am kind of happy that I got sick that week, because it put Dr. K in the limelight, and that was a wonderful thing to sort of push the show forward. Welcome, Chris. Welcome, Scott. But because it was last minute, because I was sick, that's the reason that I have MJ reading directly from the script. I love the deadpans there and the commentaries. But yeah, because it was a last minute change to what we were doing, I didn't want to have to ask MJ to memorize all these different lines, so I just had them read off the script instead. And it really worked for a fun routine, because you have Dr. K constantly just bewildered at Database's statements and adding her own little bits of spin here and there. Because this is arguably Dr. K acting as Database Ranger.
We'll handle him just like any other Nylog. As a team.
Ranger Red, your rebuttal?
Kevin, you don't get it. If I'm not alone, it won't satisfy him.
Ranger Blue, you have 5 seconds.
Since when do we let a Nylog dictate?
Excellent work using logic while making it seem like a purely emotional response.
This whole routine bit is... This whole debate routine is a lot of fun.
Widely support your friend while inwardly disagreeing with his decision. Ranger Green continue to be perfectly reasonable. Ranger Pink,
welcome, July. I hope I pronounced that close to right.
Unforgiving person who will automatically side with whichever choice seems most rash. And Ranger Yellow, just keep looking concerned while contributing absolutely nothing to the conversation.
Poor Emily. Her character just had so little to contribute in so many regards.
He's also the only one who has the sealing power. Jaden, you're the key to stopping the Nylog.
Now,
Very good.
I
That
do-
didn't realize anyone still cared about.
I do rather like that,
Ranger Red, your response.
how that little element played into things later on. That moment
Ranger Red wins the debate. The two
is
parties
something
spent
that was
24 hours
shockingly subtle. The fact that, the sealing power wasn't something he actually had. And that does play into his character there, and that does make me a little bit more forgiving of his character actions in this episode. Um, but I also love things like call-outs to Zanaku, which are references Dr. K wouldn't get. She's just rolling with this script. But yeah, it's really interesting how brooding Mia is in this episode, considering what had just happened in the previous episode. Well, I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah.
And then tell me, what does this have to do with whether or not someone has a duel with someone else for completely unrelated reasons?
I'm just having her just dive into why this whole bit, why Mia's whole character beat in this episode makes basically no sense. Somehow, learning that Decker had a sympathetic backstory made her less sympathetic to Decker, which, would make sense in the original Shinkanger, where Juzo had a very non-sympathetic backstory. But this whole bit is so... Everything with Decker's character is very strange, due to the fact they chose to make him sympathetic. Because they all just sort of treat him as if he's this irredeemable monster in the present. But they don't actually start really treating him that way until after they find out his sympathetic origin. And it's, again, just doesn't really work. Of course, Dr. K wouldn't get a quantum leap reference. There's so many good bits that I had forgotten about. There were a lot of really good good gags and good jokes back in the early episodes. And MJ does a really good job of selling it. Obviously, episode 91 came out with the new year, and that was a fantastic showcase for all three of MJ's characters. And much like Zeltrax in A Star is Born, Master Orc in Sealing the Nexus, and then Jax and Embodied, I'm sure he'll never be seen again. Yes, and Dr. K is very skeptical. Oh, that's one little bit that we really, that take was one that we really had to work on, and it's a strange thing that a lot of you might not notice, but is something that MJ tries to really, really key in on. MJ has different eyebrow shape than Olivia Tennant. And so there's always an effort to try and avoid making eyebrow furrows that that Olivia Tennant wouldn't be able to make due to the different eyebrow shape. So that little kind of eyebrow lift was something that took a lot of practice to actually get right. And yes, Jenny, that's really what it was. It was the copying of the Sentai in a way that didn't work. Things got recontextualized, but in a way that made them make less sense. It's crazy to me that I was pumping these episodes out just week after week back at the beginning, because now it takes so long to put together anything. And a big part of that is because, back then it was just have fun with the with the review. You don't need to, worry about all these other pieces that I'm worrying about now, like character development and plot development. I could throw in those little bits of foreshadowing, but now it's just like, okay, if I don't tackle this, plot point A, B, and C in each episode, then I won't get to resolve them by the end of the series. Now, Ranger Vision, as far as why Saban's so close to the Sentai, I've heard different reasons as well. To my understanding, it was largely the creative decisions made by Jonathan Zakor, but I could be mistaken.
Now, hold on a minute. Okay. I may not be the most brain working at the moment, but I am.
And this was the one bit I knew I could actually get through.
My favorite season.
And
there are many.
And my voice kind of comes and goes here. And I could barely focus, so that's why I actually had a printout of my script taped above my camera for this. I could barely focus.
We know that I've been tiptoeing around that all season. These Rangers are some of the weakest characters that we've seen, and I really don't know who to blame for it. The actors seem like an easy target, but I feel like
it was such a. Oh, hi, Sheree. Sorry I didn't say hello earlier. Good to see you.
I understand this is supposed to be directed at children, but
I knew that I had to do the wrap up. I had to do the conclusion for this whole rant on what Samurai was.
And this might be okay if the writers gave them anything of substance to work with, but they don't. The dialogue is regularly clumsy, awkward, and not made any more poetic by the inclusion of painfully expository inner monologue.
This is, as you can see, this has been a slow, just like disintegration of my patience as I've worked from the beginning of Samurai to the end. You look at my reactions to the Team Unites, and I'm very forgiving. I'm extremely forgiving on the Team Unites. I'm trying to have fun with them, just overjoyed over Power Rangers being back. And then at this point, I have just gone full into critique mode. I've been worn down by the season and by my frustrations with it and it not paying off in any of the ways that I was looking for. And you can see how I'm just digging into exactly why I feel that Samurai didn't work. Now, the other big thing that made it so important to me that I delivered this, outside of just, trying to effectively communicate my issues with the series in a way that I didn't feel would be the same if I had it coming from Dr. K, is that I need to have the final moments of the episode, and that requires an interaction, as we'll see as we get there.
Only exists because of either cultural censorship or marketing. And the sad thing is that there is nothing wrong with wanting to translate a good story for a new audience. And it could have worked.
And truth be told,
culture-blind series. Time travel, cops, dinosaurs, any of these could work. But these are samurai.
I feel like there's only so much I can actually comment on with this speech, just because there's... I'm saying all the things that I would be saying, years later about Samurai. This was...
I'm still seeing sounds and tasting colors, so I will cut this short.
Yes.
If you would like to hear more
and here comes a very dated moment.
That didn't come out right. And check out my new blog here.
Oh, Tumblr, I have not updated you in a number of years. I keep forgetting that Tumblr exists. I was going to get into a whole thing about what my pitch would have been for Samurai, and I only maybe got through half of it before I got all caught up in all the other aspects of Power Reviews. This also led directly into the AskDB series, which was a lot of fun.
Which I have made an effort to highlight in past episodes. Fortunately, even these small successes have been heavily...
I really can't believe I did this in such a
schedule.
such a
And
long
I feel
take.
The whole thing has been a failed experiment in storytelling. That was
I'd forgotten how long this rant
for
actually
future
was.
seasons. Oh, and one more thing. Just because a person might like Power Rangers a little bit
And
more
here we
than the
go.
next guy does not make it okay to be sneaking all sorts of chemical products
Consent is important.
tested by the FDA into my system. So, I will ask you nicely to just end this unfounded and unwelcome drilling expedition into my psyche. Okay.
This
I will
moment.
cease my psychological evaluation if you can answer one question to satisfaction.
Okay, fine, shoot.
Do I exist?
And there's the moment.
What?
You say that you understand Power Rangers is just a show. Do I exist?
That moment.
You know what? I think that's enough for this week's episode of Power Reviews. Make sure to join us next week when we'll be moving on to the next chapter.
That's the moment where I just, for the first time in the series, underlined that
Super Samurai.
there
Until then,
was more going on under the surface.
Let the power protect you.
And that just sort of broke my character's brain for the first time. And I'm not going to jump into the next episode until next week. But that was sort of the hook moment. I wanted to go through those first 8 episodes of Samurai. I wanted to sort of have these first 8 episodes are arguably a pilot season within the pilot season. You know, the first 12 episodes are all year 0. And they have their own arc to them. But these first 8 episodes, where I just fly through Samurai as quickly as possible so that I can get caught up to Super Samurai, was really where I was sort of testing the waters of the series and testing to see how people related to these characters and how people might end up being intrigued by the idea of a story underneath it all. Because up until this moment, it was very, very episodic. Things continued from one episode to the next. It was, we were seeing this clear evolution of Database Ranger's relationship with Samurai. But that moment with Dr. K, questioning whether she's real or not, was the opening it up to a larger story under the surface, something beyond just how this person was reacting to Power Rangers, and establishing that Dr. K was potentially more than just a gimmick. Because there's so many characters that would pop up in those old That Guy with the Glasses episode series, where you would just have random characters pop in because it was funny for a bit. Like Linkar is a very good example. He had himself dressed up as Cable for an episode. He, Harvey Finevoice is another character who, or the Ninja Style Dancer, were characters who never really had, to my recollection, really proper introductions and just sort of showed up for a bit and then became integrated into the cast, and you just kind of accepted they were there, and eventually you got a little bit more insight into their characters. But with Dr. K, I wanted it to be something a little bit more. I wanted it to be something that was fundamentally tied into the story of the show, that she wasn't just a drop-in character, that she wasn't just there for laughs, that there was a reasoning behind why this character is there and how that character was there, and that was going to be the driving question of the entire series. And it has been. And we still don't know how Database Ranger met Dr. K, and that question, is deliberately, kind of dangling out there for these 90 plus episodes now, as that driving force. It it's the push that gets Database to re-examine his world and start to re-examine himself and go on this big journey of self-discovery that we're still on. Database is going to be learning a lot more about himself over the course of these last 9 episodes. Um, because there's still things he does not know. He knows that he's, spoilers, he knows that he's the Phantom Ranger. I know that spoiler is at this point, 7 years old. But he doesn't know who he is beyond that. He doesn't know how he became the Phantom Ranger, and he doesn't know how he then became this version of himself, Database Ranger. He knows that he ended up in this apartment somehow, but he doesn't know how. He doesn't know how he met Dr. K. They've just sort of been there. And I look forward to finally bringing that mystery to a conclusion over the course of these next little less than 2 years, these next 9 episodes. And I'm hoping that you'll all enjoy taking that journey with me. Now, as far as other questions here in the chat, commentary on grid defense. I should do that at some point. I don't know when. I know I also still owe all of you a rider log on Kamen Rider Build. I do love Kamen Rider Build. I just need to find a good time. Especially since there's so many other things that I do want to do videos on. I do want to do another follow-up video on what we do next now that the election season is over, and how we can continue to be heroes and be Power Rangers and save the world. Those are videos I do want to come out. I do want to work on. So I know that I'm going to have a scripted video before the end of this month, but I'm not sure what yet. And I know next month is when I'm planning for episode 92. So I'm trying to figure out. I don't know yet if it's going to be a follow-up on the what do we do next? How do we become superheroes sort of series, or a conversation in context, or maybe I might just go for it and finally do the Kamen Rider Build Rider Log. I'm not sure, but I'll keep you guys in the loop once I figure it out. Obviously, my mind has been elsewhere these last few weeks with the birth of RJ. They're doing very well, by the way. We just had our another checkup, and healthy, growing, just beautiful. Everything's going well on that front. So things are going well at home. And then I will, with regards to other things with Kamen Rider, I have seen all of phase 2 of the Heisei era. I've seen Kuga, but I haven't seen the rest of phase 1 of the Heisei era, and I haven't seen any Showa era stuff, outside of Masked Rider on Fox back in the day, or the Kamen Rider Dragon Knight on Kids WB back in the day. I very much like Kamen Rider Build. I think it's my favorite Rider series. I very much enjoyed X-Aid, Double. O's I ended up enjoying actually quite a bit. I'm sorry to say, Sheree, that Ghost is probably my least favorite, but to each their own. It's been interesting seeing how every Rider series is. Oh, Gaim, of course, very good. Almost everybody loves Gaim. But yeah, I actually just introduced MJ to X-Aid the other day because it's like, maybe we could watch, because I needed a palate cleanser after the chaos of Wednesday, and it's like, you want to watch a Kamen Rider series? I'm thinking, I would maybe I want to revisit like Build or X-Aid, and they're just like, X-Aid, because the whole gamer doctor premise fits very well for somebody who enjoys video games and works at a hospital. So, and yes, I know Ryuki is definitely Heisei. And you're right. Technically, Black RX is Heisei. I think of it as Showa just because it's prior to the big break, but that's fair. Um, it's just not folded into the Heisei era, generally speaking. So all that said, I look forward to continuing this next week with all of you as we dive into Super Samurai, and continue building upon the relationship between Database Ranger and Dr. K. The blossom, what from here turns into a blossoming friendship that really I think is very much at the heart of the series. Even though right now, those characters are all separated. Episode 91, I will say again, kudos to MJ because it's the first episode ever that did not feature Database Ranger, and of course MJ had to be the one to lead it, as all three of their characters, and it was wonderful. The current, I'll talk more about the current arc of Power Reviews as we get into it a little bit more with episode 92, hopefully in February. But for now, I think this is a good place to wrap things up. So let's not forget our 3 closing non-controversial phrases. Phrases that we should all be able to agree just shouldn't be something to argue over. Things that we should all be able to agree upon are non-controversial and that we can move past. Because when we take these things for granted, that's when the forces against them rise up. So let's not take them for granted. So let's kick off. Let's close things out with those 3 remaining non-controversial phrases. Number 1, love is love. Number 2, say it with me, chat, trans rights are human rights. And number 3, say it with me, chat, robots are cool. And so are synth-organic biomechanoids, but we'll learn more about that later. So, with all that said, I look forward to seeing you all next week, and until then, farewell, Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.